Hello and welcome to Amy Hart's Mums Club. In this podcast, I'll be sharing the highs and lows of being a mum, plus each week I'll be joined by a special guest and together we'll delve into their experiences of parenthood. And that's not all. This podcast is for you. Each week, I'll be taking your questions and comments and giving you all the help I can. So if you want to ask me anything, email amyhartsmumsclub@news.co.uk and I will help you as best I can. My guest today is a former children's TV presenter turned daytime TV legend, an ice skater, a podcaster and a pilot. We have the wonderful Laura Hamilton with us.
I wouldn't go as far as saying I'm a pilot yet. And I love the fact that you called me a legendary daytime TV presenter. Thanks.
That's all right. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good thing. It's lovely to have you here with us. I have so much to talk about. First of all, I want to go back because I feel like you are such like a broadcasting legend, and I feel like the way
Don't tell me you used to watch me on kids TV.
Fun Song Factory. Can't say factory, it's factory, obviously. And Nickelodeon, obviously.
Yeah.
But I feel like you did it like the real old school, like cutting your teeth, learning the ropes way, because you started off working for Dermot O'Leary, didn't you, as his runner?
I was, yeah. Yeah, do you know what? I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there, that I did sort of come up the ranks in the old school way. That was the way it was, like reality TV was only just like becoming a thing when I started out in TV. I worked on the very first series of Big Brother at Channel 4, and I was a runner, a facilities company in-house at Channel 4, and so it was incredible. I was in the edit suites, and I remember there was the big scandal where, I mean, you won't remember this, but there was a big scandal where I think it was Nasty Nick.
Yeah,
he was like writing notes and passing it, and we were all just like watching this in the edit suites thinking, my God, what's going on? And so yeah, that was where it all really broke. But I didn't ever kind of come up the ranks through like a reality TV way. I started behind the scenes in TV, runner, assistant floor manager, kids TV presenter, and then just been around a long time, Amy.
Did you do all of that with a view to being a presenter, or were you just wanted to work in TV and then it sort of naturally happened that you became a presenter?
I think I always had a love of performing. As a kid, I was always the first child on the dance floor, at the holiday parks, being a bit of a show.
So, did you ever used to get invited up onto the stage to do the dance with the reps?
Yes.
Like that was like the best moment of my holiday every year.
So that was me. That's who I was, and I just loved like performing. But I didn't really know how I was going to get into it, even though I did like singing, dancing, after school sort of activities. I was at normal school. I really wanted to go to the Brits. I was desperate to go to Brit school, but my mum and dad said, no, it's too far away from where we live, and how are you going to get there? Not that they tried to put me off, because they were really encouraging of like helping me do things, but it was like logistically it wasn't going to work for me to get there. So I went to a very normal school, did my GCSEs and A-levels, and then kind of thought, well, that's it. I'm not going to be able to get into TV or performing now. I've done a few pantos as a kid. So I decided, actually, the next best thing is to work behind the scenes in TV to get a job as a runner. And I wrote to loads of TV companies, got the usual letter back from most of them, sort of saying, no, too young, not going to happen. And Channel 4 wrote back and said, come for an interview. So I went for an interview, and I got the job as a runner, and I was offered the job at Channel 4 literally 2 months before I'd done my A-levels. So I went into my A-levels thinking, this is great. I've got a job that I can go to. I took a gap year from going to university, because I was going to go and study law and psychology, and ended up in telly and loved it. Literally loved being in that environment, learning how it all works, thinking secretly one day I'd love to be sat on that sofa presenting, but learn also very quickly it's kind of not the done thing. Well, it wasn't the done thing to say, I want to be a presenter. So I kind of kept it to myself. And then the next 4 years, I just learned how everything worked behind the scenes and became an assistant floor manager, an assistant director. And I was loving it. And I won't say that I'd kind of accepted that I wasn't going to be able to move to the other side of the camera, but I was cool with it if I didn't. But then I got a lucky break.
What was your lucky break?
So I did a Panto. I played Cinderella.
Don't laugh. Panto was like the best thing I've ever done. I loved it so much.
So I've done a lot of Pantos. I was in Milton Keynes, I did Brighton.
Oh, that's Brighton, that's, yeah.
Yeah, so I was in Brighton, I was in Bromley, I did Milton Keynes with the lovely Bradley Walsh. Bromley, I was with Stephen Gately from Boyzone. And Steve Guttenberg, I did a Panto with him, Kim and Aggie down in Brighton. And so I was actually, my very first Panto, it was a local Panto in Gravesend with an actor called, he was Dr. Truman in EastEnders, Nick Bailey.
Yes.
And he said to me, so I remember going for the audition. I told Dermot, actually, and the crew at Big Brother, I'm going to go and audition for a Panto. And they were all like, what? Why would you, what, how are you going to do that? And I was like, oh, well, I do actually sing, I do actually dance, but no one really knows that. And I just think it'll be a fun thing to do this Christmas. So I went for the audition and I got the part of Cinderella. Nick Bailey was a Dandini in the show. And I just remember having a conversation with him and him saying, Laura, why are you working behind the scenes in TV? You know, you clearly love performing. You should really pursue that if you can as a career. I was like, yeah, but you know, Nick, where do you even start? And I love what I do, and people are just going to think I'm odd if I start to say I'm going to try and pursue that career. And he said, well, get an agent. And I'm like, yeah, that's really easy to do.
I'll just get an agent. Thank you for letting me know.
Just get an agent. And but he actually said, look, there's a newspaper called The Stage. Why don't you look in The Stage and see if there's anything that comes up? And it's that chicken and egg situation. You know, you can't get an agent without experience. You can't get, you know, that experience really unless you've got an agent that's putting you forward for jobs. But I saw this article in The Stage newspaper. I didn't even get the actual paper. I went online and saw, like, one week they were looking for kids TV presenters, and it was quite specific, the job. It was like you couldn't be too tall because you couldn't make the children look too small. You couldn't be too small to make the children look too big. They obviously wanted, like, the demographic of presenters. You had to be able to sing, you had to be able to dance, you had to be able to present. And they obviously were looking for a group of people that looked right together. And I just thought, you know what? I didn't even have a headshot. So I got one of the cameramen from a Big Brother's Little Brothers to take a photo, and I sent that in, and I got an audition, and that was Fun Song Factory. And so after 3 months of auditions, I got the role of Melody. And
I've got the song in my head now.
Yeah,
that's going to be there all day. Put it on YouTube later.
Played Melody for 2.5 years on CITV, and we were a little mini band as well. So we went on tour, and we supported Lamar in Warwick Castle, and we did, like, the Butlins tours, and yeah, we went on a theatre tour, and I don't know how many shows we filmed, but it was like with a live audience, kids. In fact, you were probably in the audience, Amy, as one of the kids. You know,
I mean, I was waiting to be invited up on stage. Do you think, and this is something that I think about a lot, because I mean, I'm personally victimised by this, but the loss of children's TV, like live studio children's TV and like pre-recorded stuff like Fun Song Factory, and I know it's because children's viewing habits have changed and they all watch YouTube, and do you think we're losing out on a whole generation of new TV presenters? Because that is where, like, you, Holly, Stephen, Ant and Jack, Kat, like, that's sort of where, like, you're sort of like learnt your craft.
I do, but I think that's just the way TV's going. And actually now, with the beauty of online, people can very much still, like, learn their craft. I mean, if you think, like, the lives on Instagram, that is like a live. You know, if you do lives on TikTok, that's how you like it. It does feel that people can almost become it a bit more easy now than previously. I mean, God, like, it opens up a whole new demographic for me. I very much feel like I'm having to relearn again. Yeah. You know, like, the whole world of socials and growing a different audience online for me is a whole new thing. It's like, it is, I think there's lots of people that have old school that are kind of struggling with how do we manage that shift.
I mean, I'd say that because, you know, I've just done a 45-minute live broadcast for Love Island, but I'm also like, I would have really loved to have been a Blue Peter presenter, but there we go.
But then you
at 32, married with a child, I'm not sure I'm quite the demographic.
Of course you could. You absolutely
I remember when Katie
could.
Hill got married and she came onto set in her wedding dress. like on Blue Peter.
But I do think, okay, it's such a shame that those shows are no longer, live, because live is an amazing.
I love live.
I love
love it.
Nickelodeon live.
Yeah.
I love being on beaches every day in the UK, getting covered in slime and doing all these like random challenges. And I tell you where I learned my sort of craft of live TV is because I was an assistant floor manager and I had talkback in my ear as an assistant floor manager. So I don't know if you know, an assistant floor manager is the person who's responsible for getting guests onto the sofas and listening to the director who's in the gallery. So you have that communication, but as an assistant floor manager, you're not having to actually speak. Whereas as a presenter, you're listening to talkback but having to speak at the same time. And so I felt like I really got my training from talkback as an AFM, which has helped me then as a presenter do live. I don't get to do live as much as I'd like to. But apart from, I suppose, online, if you do sort of, Insta lives or TikTok lives or whatever. But it does feel a shame that lots of that live telly is going. But then that's not to say that you can't create your own live TV show on YouTube.
That is true. I think now, like, there's certain things that are like appointment to watch, aren't they? But everything else, it is nice to have the freedom to like watch it whenever you want.
Yeah, I mean, I watch, I think, more television recently than I've ever done before.
There's so much good stuff.
Well, yeah, there is a lot of good stuff that's coming out at the moment, but I think you've hit the nail on the head that it's like I can watch it when I want to watch it on my terms. If I have to sit down and think, oh, this episode's on and it has to fit into my weekly schedule. I mean, when you've got kids and you're managing them and you're managing a job and you're managing everything else, it's like, I don't have time to sit down and catch an episode of this on this particular day. I need to watch it when it can fit in with the rest of whatever else I'm doing.
Like you said about being a mum and juggling. Now you have 2 children, don't you? Rocco and Talia.
Yeah.
How do you find being a mum? Like, do you love like the day-to-day? Do you love going on holiday with them?
I love it. Of course, it comes with its challenges and challenges at every age. I look back at when they were like 3 weeks old, I went back to work with both of them. So with Rocco, he was 3 weeks old and I was out in Austria doing the jump for Channel 4. So I got asked
Were you doing the jump or hosting the jump?
Doing the jump.
3 weeks after you had a baby?
Yeah. So I was out and I'd had an emergency C-section, but I wasn't skiing at 3. Well, actually, that's a lie. I did go skiing at 3 weeks after, but I have skied since I was a lot younger. So it wasn't that I was coming at it from no experience. But I didn't actually do the jump or do the bobsleigh or skeleton until 9 weeks after having a baby. And that makes me sound really irresponsible, but I wasn't, because I was medically cleared.
Yes. And you've got the best medical team there.
Exactly. And so I did that because I very much wanted to prove, just because I've had a baby doesn't mean that I've lost my identity and who I am. I love my career. I love my children. And I felt like I wanted to prove to myself, not anybody else, I can do this.
Yeah.
And I did that show, breastfeeding Rocco. My mum was with me, and I did that show up in the middle of the night with a breast pump, expressing milk, so I could go out and train for a few hours during the day with everyone else. And we had Graham Bell. And
were you with Amy Child?
Yeah. It's the very first series. And I remember waking up one morning and Nikki Clark, the hairdresser who was on it, said, I don't know what is going on in the room next door to me, but there's this like noise, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's me and my breast pump. And he was like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, I've got Rocco, but it was brilliant. Like, I've got photos of Davina, with Rocco on the plane. So we went out when he was 3 weeks old, and then I came home for Christmas, and then we went back out for a month, early Jan. And I didn't win the show, even though I'm really competitive and I wanted to go as far as I could. I think I came 5th in the end, but I was the only person, or the only female up until a certain point, that had been cleared to jump the 45 meter jump. And I just couldn't do it. I could jump from a 25 high meter jump, but the thought of going up 45 meters, and it didn't do it justice on TV. You'd like watch the show and see this jump and think, it looks fine. And I had friends that said to me, Laura, you're nuts. Like, just go and do it. You can do it. You can do it. And I'm like, do you know what? You need to get yourself out here. You need to go up to the top of 45 meters and look down and see how high that is, because it is high. And so I couldn't do it. And there is a little part of me sometimes that thinks, oh, damn, like, I wish I
wake
had
at 4
done,
o'clock in the morning.
because, you know, I was defeated by it. But no, I proved a point to myself that I could have a baby, I could travel with him. And then when Talia was 3 weeks old, we did the same. I went to Mallorca. I went back to a place in the sun, and we were traveling, and I was traveling with two of them under 2. And I used to take an awful lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But now, you know, I could tell anyone. Well, it's interesting. Some parents will say, "Oh my word, like traveling with kids, it's so stressful." All I would say is, I knew no different, because I did it from when they were a very early age, and it's not for everyone. But that was my choice to do it, and it's very easy, isn't it, when you've got kids, like, people do judge you. One parent will go, oh, you know, that's irresponsible, you shouldn't be doing that. You've just got to do what's right for you. We're all learning. We're all doing what we feel is best. And that was what felt best for me. I knew I didn't want to compromise who I was. I wanted my career, and I wanted my children to be part of that. And I think traveling with children is one of the most, like, educational. They're confident. They're amazing swimmers. They're amazing skiers.
I used to think it was a bit of a cop-out. You know, when people, like, say about taking their kids out of school and they're like, you know, it enriches them, going on holiday enriches them. I used to think, bit of a cop-out, but you know what? I'll go with it if it means I've got to queue less at Disney. Like, if I get to pay less for my holidays, I'll go with it. Like, I'll agree with you. We took Sonny when he was 8 weeks, 11 weeks, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, and 11 months. And I was like, why don't people travel with their children? This is so easy. And then we took him when he was 14 months.
Walking up and down the aisles.
Oh my, I was like, oh, and I say to everyone, I'm like, go on as many holidays as you can in that first year. That is so easy.
I would say that you're right. When they start to become mobile and they're walking up and down, and you're going on long haul flights. But I think as a parent, you worry more about what other people are thinking. So even when you've got a newborn and, or, you know, a very young baby, and they start to cry on the plane, it makes you more anxious than actually other people. That's the way I sort of think. Like,
Orlando was lovely.
I
like,
understand.
Yeah, he's expected to be here. On a flight to Abu Dhabi, probably don't expect to have a little toddler running around.
I don't know. I took my 2 to, you know.
Well, the people next to us on the flight to Abu Dhabi did not expect to have a 2-year-old running around. But on an Orlando, you have chosen to go on holiday to Orlando. You know there's going to be kids on the plane.
Not to be kids. But I do think travel with children is amazing, like, from getting them to experience other cultures, food. You know, there's not a case of, like, you've got to be fat. It's like, no, this is what we eat here. And if you want it, then, I mean, my 2 pretty much will. I mean, they love sushi, but they will eat whatever. It's like, well, you know, this is the way it works. I can confidently say that if I had, I mean, Rocco is 11, Talia is nearly 10. If I said to the 2 of them, these are your passports. Not that I would ever do this, by the way, just before it gets twisted. But if I said to them, here are your passports, you're going to come and meet me in Mallorca. I mean, I think Rocco would be like, yeah, I'm stepping up to the plate here. I'm going to look after my sister or whatever. And be like, right, you're heading to the airport, and you're going to go to South Terminal in Gatwick, and you need to go through security and get to this gate. He'd go, yeah, okay, cool, I can do it. Because they've done it so much. I mean, Rocco went on a trip to France with school last week for the day. They literally went there by coach. I mean, it felt like they should have stayed overnight, actually, for a few days. Although I want to get rid of him anyway. But I was like, wow, they went for the day, and they went to a French market, a croissant factory, and a French market. And for Rocco, I was like, wow, you know, for a lot of children, this is like the first time they're going away. And I'm like, wow, Rocco's a bit like, yeah, I've been to France, I've done this, I've done that. And I was like, but Rocco, you've got to appreciate that actually you're very lucky. Yeah. Very, very lucky. And in COVID times in particular.
Your kids were like, so we've got to stay.
No, they didn't.
Oh, because they got to go with you for work.
We went to 16 different locations in the year of COVID, which is crazy because we were filming. And we did obviously in the period of lockdown where we couldn't travel between that. It was March to July, I think, and then
4 long
again
months.
like at Christmas time. But in that year where there were places that were opened up, yes, there were so many tests that we had to do, so many forms that we had to fill in to get the QR codes. We went to so many different destinations, and I was saying to Rocco and Talia, listen, you're lucky that you travel anyway, but this year more than ever, I want you to really, really like understand and appreciate. And I think they did. I think they did. But you never know, do you?
Yeah, when we flew home from Orlando, it was all Americans because it was spring break. We were the only British family in premium on this flight, on Norse, very good premium. And we were chatting to everyone, and they were like, oh, my daughter's really good with babies, my husband's really good with babies, da, da, da. If you need them. And he literally sat and like played for a bit, and then I bought one of those blow up beds.
Oh yeah.
And he slept the whole way back. And in the morning they were like, oh my God, Stanley's a pro. Has he flown much? And I was like, yeah. And Sam was like, I went on 3 holidays before I was 18. Stanley went on 3 holidays before he was 4 months old.
Yeah. Talia's first year, or first 11 months of her life, she'd been on 23 flights.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So,
Amazing.
I mean, she did a lot in 11 months. But like I said, when that's all you know, when you're like, do you know what, this is my life. I felt like when I had the children, and it's weird because I always was a career girl, and I was never. It wasn't that I didn't want to get married, but I definitely wasn't a girl that had planned like this big white wedding. That just wasn't on my. I wasn't like, oh, one day I need to get married, one day I need to have children. I thought, oh, one day I would love to have kids.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't that person that had planned anything from that point of view. And then obviously, I did get married, and then I did want children. I just was really clear that, right, I don't want to give up my career, and I want to be of the mentality of the children fit in with me and us, not we fit in with the children. And that was the way that it is, and that's the way it will always be. And I'm really excited as they're getting older, just seeing their little characters like develop, and knowing that they have learned and they are so inspired by travel. I say to Talia, where do you think you'll be when you're old? She's like, I don't know, I might go and live in America, or I'm I live in California. I'm like, oh right. Or then she'll say, oh, actually maybe I'll live in France because I might want to like get some horses and be a farmer. And then Rocco's like, yeah, well I'm gonna be like playing football. So who knows which country like I'll be in, but I'll always have a base in England. I'm like, oh, okay. But they definitely love travel. They definitely love property. Righty, they've got an opinion on property. I'll get messages from my daughter saying, I'd like to change up my room, mummy. I really want to go for like this style, and she'll go onto Pinterest and she'll put a little mood board together. She's like, I don't really like the doors in the house. Can we change the doors? Can we change the carpet? And I'm like, listen, your room was only decorated a couple of months ago. Like, we're not recarpeting the whole house to fit with your Pinterest mood board.
I love that though. She loves a Pinterest board. So obviously you've bought a house in Mallorca. I'm not going to say obviously actually because it's not that obvious because other people don't know. So you bought a house in Mallorca last year, which is a renovation project.
Yes.
You were telling me earlier. So will your kids be helping with that?
Absolutely. So it's my 21st renovation.
Wow.
So I've been involved in property since I was 19, and didn't plan for my property career to kind of overlap with the TV thing. In fact, it was very much like a side hustle on with what I was doing in telly. It was like, well, not my backup, because I feel like when you want to do something, I've listened to a few things where people say you should never have a backup, because it's like if you want to do something, you should have like one focus, and that's your goal, and that's where you're going. If you have anything that's a backup, then that's putting doubt in your mind that you're not going to get to where you want to be. So you've got to have something there on the side. I'm a bit mixed actually with that, because I feel like, no, it's always good to have side hustles, and especially since COVID.
I've got a lot of friends that like work in the West End, and they need their side hustles because they can want it as much as they want, but if the casting director doesn't think they're right for the role, it's not because they've got a backup, it's because the casting director doesn't think they're right for it.
I think side hustles are good. And so property was, I suppose, it wasn't really, it was just me, like I wanted to get the property market ladder as soon as I could. And so I bought a flat when I was 19, and never I was working as a floor manager at a shopping channel. The shopping channel went bust 3 months after I'd bought the apartment. So I lost my job and ended up having to let the property out. And it was a little sort of out of date flat with tabby cat carpet and an avocado bathroom suite. Did it all up in a really cheap way with no experience of obviously doing up property, but then got made redundant and then thought, well, I don't want to lose it, so I'll let it out. And that was what happened. I let the property out, moved back to my parents, and without kind of realising, that was the start of my property journey. And so...
Do you still own that flat now?
No. Sold it to my brother like 10 years after buying it to help him get on the property ladder. But sort of since then, I've done an awful lot in the world of like property, well, as much as I could possibly do on the side of a TV job. Commercial ventures, so I bought the local village shop 8 years ago, became the local postmistress, set up a coffee shop, a deli and restaurant in the community, and developed a house and a flat, and so kind of got me to the point where I was filming A Place in the Sun plus doing property on the side. And then had always said Mallorca was the first place that I took my daughter to when she was 3 weeks old. And I just loved Mallorca. Like, it's a beautiful island. And said, you know what, one day I will have somewhere here. And I do feel like I'm a bit of a believer in manifestation, or definitely like positivity. If you say that's my end goal, or that's what I'm going to make happen, and you truly, you believe it, then you put it out there and it happens. And I just think, gosh, you've got to be careful. I've got to be careful what I say, because 10 years ago, I said I was buying a house in Mallorca, and here I am like a year ago, and I've got a house in Mallorca. So it is a project. I mean, look, I was never going to buy a house that didn't need any work doing to it, but renovating overseas is very, very different to renovating in the UK. But yes, the children, in answer to your question, are part of it. They saw it, and when they saw it for the first time, I was like, is this what you're expecting, guys? And they were like, well, yeah, because it's what you do. So we know it looks like a building site and a mess right now, but we know that it won't do when you finished it, because they have been part of my projects, throughout the years, over the years. In fact, the last house that I did in the UK, which I sold last June, they were part of that journey as well. And, on diggers in the garden, and using sledgehammers to smash down walls, and they do enjoy being part of it.
Do you have any top tips for anyone that was looking to renovate a house, like someone that's never renovated before?
Start small. And when I say start small, the reason why I would say that, and actually if you've got a house that you're trying to tackle the whole house, bring it down to like one room at a time and focus on that rather than thinking it as a big project as a whole. Keep a spreadsheet for your budgets. Build a good team. You need a good team of tradespeople, because without that can make or break a project. Learn as much as you can about the renovating process, what people are doing, because I think, when you've got a car, for example, and you send it off for a service, when you don't have any idea of, I'm not saying become a mechanic, but, if you've got no idea about how it's all working, you have to trust that mechanic that they've said they're servicing your car, and you don't actually know if they've done it or not, do you, really? No. So when you're renovating a house, if you can have a little bit of knowledge on how certain things work, because I love that over the years when I've chatted to my builders, and they'll go, oh, yeah, we're doing this, and this. And I'm like, oh, right, okay, really? And then you call them out on it and you go, right, but what about that then? Or what about that? And they're like, oh, so actually do know what you're talking about. And I don't know it, like, trust me, like, out of all the renovation projects I've done, as experienced as I'd like to say that I am, and I would like to think that I've got a lot of experience, every project you'll learn from. Every project is different. There'll always be something that goes wrong, that's unexpected, but it's how you manage that and how you, either pivot or think, right, well, just because that's happened, because it is stressful. It can be stressful. Yeah. It's like having a baby. Yeah. That's what I would say, a house project.
No, let's talk about A Place in the Sun. Now, everyone says it's very hard to get, like, sort of to where you are in TV, like being a presenter of such an iconic show. But it's even harder to stay there. And you have got this amazing career. How long have you hosted Place in the Sun?
13 years, coming up 14 years.
What is your secret?
I don't think it's me. I think it's the show. Everybody loves, it's an iconic brand, isn't it? Place in the Sun is Channel 4's second longest running show aside of Countdown. And I'm glad I'm not in Countdown because I'm at maths and was never going to be Carol Vorderman, although I have been learning to fly like Carol Vorderman. She's qualified, I'm not. But I just think, you know, the show's brand is so iconic. And
you're part of that.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't you, they could put anyone, they could have a voiceover. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm very much one of the team. And I would say, like, that is one thing about the training that I've had throughout my life, starting behind the scenes in TV and even in business. Like, so when I set up the coffee shop in the community, it is so important to me when you run a business that you learn what everybody does, because ultimately you might be in front of the camera and people on the outside might say, oh, well, you're the star of the show, or you're the face of the brand. No. That doesn't happen without a team of people together, pulling it all together in you know, a wheel doesn't operate on one cog. Like, it's about everyone. And that's why the show is successful. So I always would say, you know, I'm part of a team, part of a family, and it's because of all of us that make it what it is. So I can't say, oh, well, I'm just where I am because of me. I'm like, no, I'm where I am because of the support network and the team around me and being part. And that's, I think, why. And I'd also like to think that I've always been like loyal and like honourable, and I treat people like with respect, and hope, you know, they treat me with respect. And I think when you do that, it does kind of like go a long way, and people think, oh, we like working with Laura. Yeah. We want her back. You don't really want to be a dick, do you?
No, you don't.
Anything, they don't want you back again.
And also because you're passionate about travel, you're passionate about property.
Yeah,
that also
I would
makes
say
it the dream job.
I feel like I am an expert in what I do. I don't just, like, I live and breathe property. You know, when I'm filming the show and people come on and they ask me about the ins and outs of how it actually works, I know because I'm doing it, I've done it. And I love to help and educate people that might want to do the same thing too. And so that's why we'll film the show and we'll look at 5 beautiful houses, and I'll see the luxury house and I'll spend my week with them. And I love people as well. So it's like being part of their journey and making their dreams kind of come true. But actually what I love to do off camera, because we spend a week when we're filming the show, is actually give people the knowledge of how it all works, so then they can go away after the week with me and feel like, okay, I'm empowered. I actually know what I need to do now to get this across the line. Because once we've finished filming with them, ultimately it's like, okay, you've put the offer in on the house, or, you know, you want to go away and do a bit more research, you've got the tools, on you go.
So how many weeks a year do you film?
So at the moment, we're actually on a little bit of a filming break, but generally, over the years, I've tended to film around 24, 26 episodes a year.
Wow.
It's a week abroad at a time. Yeah.
So then,
never in the UK.
No.
No, do you know what, actually? So with the children, because I co-parent them with their dad, which works really, really well. It's so lovely. They get to spend a week with him and then a week with me. I manage my filming schedule around the children. So, you know, when they're on their school holidays and I'm filming, they are with me, because obviously they're at school age now, don't have that ability to be able to travel with them full time whenever.
I'm thinking about homeschooling purely for that. It sounds like you would actually have to school him. And I'm like, oh yeah.
Do you know, like, there are so many amazing opportunities of being able to teach children whilst you're, I mean, personally, I could not homeschool, especially after COVID. It's like, it's not for me. However, travel is educational. So there are loads of options of being able to educate a child on the road. And I've got loads of friends that are doing it, and don't necessarily have to follow the school system. As much as my kids love their school, they are really happy there, and, you know, that's what they're doing. I think that no one should be judged if they decide to educate their child in a different way and not follow the normal school system. But yeah, so they spend a week with their dad and then a week with me. And so the weeks that they're with me, I'm obviously not away filming A Place in the Sun or any other, you know, projects abroad, because my focus is them. And
that's amazing that you can juggle that, and that, like, your employers support you. in doing that?
Yeah, I think, well, that also does kind of come back to the fact that having done A Place in the Sun as long as I have, when they say to me, look, what can you do? I would say to them that I'm available on these specific dates. And I love my job, and I think that's pretty clear, but ultimately my children and their happiness and, you know, me being there for them right now, because I know in a minute they'll be gone. Like they're already like, oh mum, can we have a sleepover with someone this Friday, or can we do this on Saturday? And I'm like, hang on. So I tried to still do as much with them as possible, but also respect the fact they do want to be with their friends. I mean, Talia does say to me, mum, you're just cool. You're just fun, mum. And I'm like, oh, am I? And she said to me, you're Jurassic. I'm like, what do you mean, I'm old? Or she's like, no, you're just like Jurassic. You're exciting. And I'm like, I'm not sure Jurassic's the word for it.
Yeah, no, I think
a dinosaur.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, there was a lady when I worked on the airlines that we used to call Jurassic, but I'm not sure it's because she was fun and dynamic, but maybe it's changed. Maybe it's changed. But it's like, yeah, when I have to travel with work, I sort of weigh up when I work with a cruise company, and when I go on a cruise, I take Stanley and Sam with me. It's nice. But like when I went to South Africa for literally like less than 72 hours, a couple of people said to me, "Oh, you're not taking Stanley with you?" And I was like, no.
But also, I mean, I know I've said that I try not to do that 'cause, in the weeks that I'm with them. If there's a situation that comes up where I'm like, look, there's no negotiating on this. Like, I've got to do it in a week that they are with me. I do tend to go, oh, like, I'd love to try and make this work on a week that they're not with me, because I really value my time with them. However, if I have to go, will do it. And I can't feel guilty about it, because actually the children need to see I have to work. I have to work. If they want us to do these nice things, like, they've got to be paid for.
Yes.
You know, it's, and in order for that to happen, we have to have a little bit of a compromise. So as much as sometimes there could be a little bit of mum guilt and you think, oh, I try and think of the other side, the flip side of it, and think, no, this is actually doing them good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm getting to the point, obviously, where my two are older. So, you know, yes, they still need to be looked after. Of course they do. But I mean, this morning on the school run, they were asking me about cars. They were like, oh, like, so our first cars then, what are we going to get? And I was like, well, what are you going to get? Like, how are you going to do it? Because I said, look, you've both got a little bit of like money from savings from when you were born that got put into an account. But I said, you have to get like part-time jobs. And Talia went, yeah, I'm going to get a part-time job. Yeah, I'm going to like do something like her cousin Amber worked in our coffee shop. I'll get like a job in a coffee shop or something, and I'll start saving. Rocco went, well, I'm going to be a footballer, so I'm going to be like on a like an academy contract anyway, so I'll have some income from that. I'm like, okay, so you think you're going to get money from that? I was like, yeah, there should be money from that, so I'll have some money. And I was like, okay, so what car are you going to get then? And Talia went, I might get a BMW. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then Rocco
went, Ford Fiesta, and you'll be grateful for
a BMW. I was like, well, okay, well, that might be quite expensive. And then Rocco went, yeah, I can't, maybe something like an Audi A1. I was like, okay, well, you better start, you know, saving now then, because I'm definitely not buying it. Because that's the other thing that I think is like majorly important, that they have had like a privileged child, like privileged children traveling. And it's like, no, this costs money. And actually, if you want a life like this, continuing a life like this, then you have work ethic and you will be paying for it, because I'm not.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I'm like, that both of them at the moment are selling clothes on Vinted.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's so funny. I learned something new about my husband in Disney. I've been brought up, when we go through like gift shops, like you don't get anything, you don't even look. There's no point looking. We're not buying something from every gift shop. We're going through gift shops in Disney, and Sam was picking us up, going, Stanley, have you seen this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want that? I'm like, Sam, what are you doing? Like, we're not buying all of this stuff. What are you doing?
No, I don't think I say to my son, you can look, but we're not.
No.
We're not having any of it.
Sounds like suggesting things that he hasn't even looked at. Sam, put down. But thank you so much for joining me today. It's been amazing, and like, I've taken so much from everything you said. So thank you so much. If there was one piece of parenting advice you could give our listeners, what would it be?
Do what you do and don't worry about anyone else. Like, you know, don't judge anyone else for their parenting, and don't let anyone else judge you. No one knows what they're doing. We're all just winging it, and it just has to feel right for you.
Now, you've been on my podcast, so you have your own podcast, don't you? Tell me about it.
I do. We're just about to go into series 2. It's called the Mile Fly Club.
Obsessed.
So we talk travel through people's lives. Series 2 is going to be a little bit different, and it's just a bit of fun, really. We had some great guests on the first series, and I guess that I've travelled throughout my life as a kid, and now through my career as well. So it's a little bit of take home. And I tell you what, I've learned some really interesting things from people. Bradley Walsh is a jet engineer.
Wow.
He was a massive conspiracy theory about the pyramids. That sparked a big conversation. So I think in series 2 we're going to be talking a bit more about like the conspiracies of travel.
Obsessed. I'm gonna have to add this to my. I have a playlist of like 85 episodes of different podcasts.
Yeah, forget listening to Colleen Rooney and you can't.
I will listen to yours. I definitely will. Well, that's it for Amy Hart's Mums Club this week. A massive thank you to my guest Laura Hamilton. You can listen to her podcast, The Mile Fly Club, wherever you get your podcasts. I'll be back next week with another fabulous guest. And don't forget, you can send in your questions to amyhartsmumsclub@news.co.uk. Don't forget, you can email in any questions to amyhartsmumsclub@news.co.uk. And you can follow us, me on @amyhartxo on Instagram, @amyhart on TikTok, and @amyhartsmumsclub on Instagram and TikTok. And I will see you next week.